Sometimes children are born with light and grace. The gods bestow upon them gifts of strength or kindness. They are wise and serve strong in kingdoms. Sometimes gods are kind. Sometimes they are not. A time ago, a child was born rotten, with tainted blood and careless parents who heard from an oracle a prophecy. The oracle foretold that if they were to have a child, he would kill his father Laius and wed his mother Jocasta too. Both parents had before indulged in 6 sins of the flesh, but in unholy and unkind ways. Laius with a kidnapped boy, and Jocasta with Laius so that she may have a child. These both were examples of arachnid anatomy, a spider's manipulation of the sex. And so a blackened seed was planted, when one and then the other took of the fruit, and all that came henceforth was plagued. Yet still this child was born. Upon hearing this fated evil, the king Laius at once dispatched an adviser to rid him of his son, so as to avoid the curse foretold. The child was left on a mountain top, foot clamped in metal-trapped jaws, alone and crying. The king waited, in hope the child would die, thus avoiding his early demise. This child, Oedipus, was instead discovered by a shepherd and raised on the hillside. His foot was mutilated, but he was beloved by a new family, his true parents believing themselves to be rid of him entirely. As Oedipus quickly grew into a man, he heard whispers here and there of a prophecy that he would kill his father and marry his mother. He refused to be of harm to the family who loved him, so, not knowing they were not by his blood, he decided to leave his life as to avoid this fate. And so he chose to wander, though it is hard to run from fate, for it is just as simple as running in the dark from a thing you do not know the shape of. When travelling down a crossroad, Oedipus came to a king's chariot and henchmen, opposing his way on the path. He asked to be excused, and left to travel onwards past them, but they refused to step aside, prioritizing their king over him. And so, as his rotten blood boiled and thrummed in rage over their disrespect, and flamed at his insult, he slayed them all where they stood. Many men and a king, till he felt satisfied. With their blood on his hands, he journeyed onwards down the path, limping increasingly as he grew tired. Soon enough, stubborn Oedipus came to the entrance of the kingdom of Thebes, though again found his path blocked. There stood a mighty sphinx, divinely beautiful and fearsome. There had been rumours of such a beast tormenting the civilians of Thebes for months, slaying those insolent folk who could not answer her riddle. "Answer my riddle, traveller," she said. "Fail, and I will devour you." Oedipus, cocksure from his success in the earlier bloodshed, waged that he may answer correctly, but that should he fail, it would still be a success somehow, for his parents would still be rid of him and his prophecy. He believed there was no way he could lose. He was beloved by fate. "Give me your riddle then, Sphinx, and I will further prove myself a great and proud warrior, avenger of Thebes and slayer of the Sphinx." The Sphinx obliged. "What goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon and 3 in the evening?" "Man," answered Oedipus, "with hands and knees as a babe, 2 feet as a man, and with a cane as well when o'erripe." "Correct," replied the Sphinx calmly. Oedipus smirked, and the Sphinx complied in her defeat, standing forward to fulfill her side of the bargain. Nobly, she slit her own throat with divine talons, so heroic Oedipus may carry her head as his prize. Upon presenting himself as a warrior, holding the Sphinx's head as proof to the kingdom of Thebes, Oedipus was commended as their saviour. He was offered a place on their throne, as theirs had passed some weeks ago, and the hand in marriage of their queen alongside it. Oedipus lived many years as a proud king of Thebes, beloved by his citizens and his new royal family, His sweet wife Jocasta showed him love overflowing, and this happy couple further tie knots unto strings of fate, and from them birthed 3 children, 2 bold boys, and kind, pious Antigone, who had double her mother's love, and shone it dazzling upon all of Thebes. This happy and fortunate family, formed on Oedipus's proud blood, were destined to stay ripe and sweet in the heat of Greece for evermore. A number of years later, a rotten plague and sickness had befallen Thebes. Oedipus, once again intent on saving his people, prayed for answers from the divine Moirai. In holy revelation, Oedipus was told that the kingdom was plagued because of the murder of their late king. If it chanced some cursed example poisoned near the head, death and disease through the whole land spread. An evil was still unresolved amongst the people, and so that which slew the last king must also be killed, to rid the kingdom of the evil and the plague in one. Oedipus, keen to prove himself once more, obtained the aid of an oracle to guide his search for the murderer of the late King Laius of Thebes. "He is a stranger, but is Theban," said the oracle, "fated blind, but for now has seeing eyes. Beggared soon, but had once had riches, he shall soon go forth, feeling the ground before him with a stick. The killer is among you." Eyes turned and looked upon Oedipus, and he grew poised at the accusation, for it seemed the oracle divined Oedipus himself guilty. "Do you think you can say such a thing, and ne'er be smart for it?" cried out Oedipus. "Yes," replied the oracle, "if there be any strength in truth. If this is the truth, then how can I have such a future? I am king of Thebes, slayer of the Sphinx. How do you prove yourself a seer? Why did you say nothing when the cursed Sphinx was here? Who helped Thebes then? None such as you. I came, I silenced her, I, the valiant Oedipus. It was I who found the answer." "You know not of your own misery, nor what stock you come of. Though you have your sight, you cannot see," said the oracle. "You have been your own kin's enemy, be they living or be they dead. Your mother and father's curse alike shall be yours one day, and it shall drive you from this land with dreadful haste, and darkness upon those eyes." Warning pronounced, the oracle took their leave, and Oedipus quickly became fearful of the future he had been warned of. He had run from fate before, and he did not wish to leave his new and wonderful life in Thebes as well. Oedipus's wife, Queen Jocasta, was apprehensive following the oracle's outburst in knowledge. She could see that Oedipus was withdrawing and growing wary with fear, so she tried to offer him some comfort. "Sorrow speaks to sorrow and finds no comfort in words. Listen to me and learn, to your comfort, that nothing born of woman can know what is to come." This confused Oedipus, and so Jocasta told him of her previous prophecy. She told him that many years ago an oracle had prophesied that her and her late husband's child would slay Laius, and that the child would wed her. Yet this prophecy had been proven false when the king had been slain at a crossroads by ruffians. Oracles were not worth trusting, and fate could be escaped. "Crossroads?" asked Oedipus. "Where? When was this?" "Why, just a number of weeks before you arrived in Thebes." Oedipus began to panic at this, and confessed that he himself had killed a group on that road in service of his wounded pride before he had defeated the Sphinx. "If that prophecy is to be trusted, that would mean you are my son. My dearest late husband Laius swore our son was dead. It must be impossible." And yet, a servant in the crowd spoke up and said that he had been sent to dispatch the child, but that he, feeling pity for the infant, had made a shepherd aware of the babe on the hillside, so he might rescue him without the king's knowledge. The babe had been trapped by the ankle and wounded because of it. Upon hearing this, Oedipus lifted up his leg and showed the scar beside his foot, matching that which was described. "I always had a limp, and yet never knew why," whispered Oedipus. Jocasta wailed, lamenting her newly realized corruption. "I do account this world a tedious theatre, for I play a part in it against my will," and she fled into the house. Oedipus stood still, awed and horrified in this unholy revelation. He had been tricked by fate, unknowing in this gross incest, defeated by his petty hubris. He was king, and for what? His blood had cursed him, sewn him into shame and guilt with tender golden thread, alongside the evil rot of his curse. "Oedipus," called out the people of Thebes, "what do we do now? The kingdom is still plagued, and so it seems are you. How should we let reign a king such as yourself, when so much evil has come with it to this house?" "My unhappy children," goes Oedipus, "suffer as though you may be, there is not a single one whose suffering is as mine." Oedipus stood in silence amongst his now apprehensive subjects. A cry broke out from the house. Oedipus rushed in, frantic and rattled, and soon enough came upon Jocasta, hung above their marriage bed. It had been her wish to leave, horrified at the truth that she had been tricked into living. She had tried to better it with comforts to Oedipus, but had made his sorrows yet worse still. Her role had been discharged. She was of service no more, and there was no more light to live for. Jocasta saw her fate and accepted it bravely and nobly, with a swift step and a pull. Who would be afraid on't, knowing to meet such excellent company in the other world? Oedipus stood still and crazed, finding her body, yet grew tame for a moment, eyes sunken, breath dry, eyes wet. The king lowered himself to the floor and bowed beside the body. He held his wife and mother in his arms in one, and with the grace of young Ophelia, picking flowers, he picked from her dress 2 brooches, and with them gouged at his eyes. And so, out from the castle doors stumbled a killer and a king, blinded yet so awake to the truth and the evil wrought beside him. The people of Thebes now stood back from Oedipus, delirious with worry of his infection. His rot had now killed their king and queen, and their city was plagued by an illness their new king had gifted. "I will cast myself from Thebes," croaked Oedipus, "as I believe my lonely blinded exile will be a fate worse than death. What sight is there that could give me joy? The hands of the dead are in my bosom, they move me, they pluck me, they guide me. I am a puppet at their command. Mine is an other voyage." And so Oedipus stumbled slowly away from the city, limping at the arm of Antigone, his daughter, the only child of Thebes who would still touch a man so cursed. Oedipus lived on in misery, so as to avoid facing his father in death, for fear of what might come of it. Antigone, having witnessed her mother and father's downfall and the disgust of their beloved people, chose to avoid the curse entirely, and greeted her mother soon after, in death as well. All of Thebes stayed plagued and leaderless, thanks to Oedipus's further denial of fate and death. Civil wars continued on thanks to his sons for many years to come. And when he finally fell away to dust, in age of exile, nothing more was wrought, for his story was done. Many players had committed to the acting in his play. Sweet women slit apart at the hands of this dumbfounded fellow. Yet in the end, it was only Oedipus for whom they fell away. And upon whose strings did his fate really come? That of the Moirai who he prayed to, or of me, who sings his song? Our value can never truly be known, till in the fisher's basket we be shown. And so a web is spun, silk is tangled, and thread is now cut. Power oft is found in hands which hold the shears, and upon a shearing of that woolen humanity is true mortal flesh revealed. A flock is fallen upon this stage, and will learn to rot as I see fit.
Okay, and then we're gonna do, if we can do a little zoom in.